Alright, we're going to start with some basic factoring. You first have to recognize that it's a quadratic function or a quadratic equation, and you look at the biggest exponent. As long as the biggest exponent is a 2, it's a quadratic, so factoring is one possible way to solve it. With this basic one, my a value, which is the number in front of x squared, is 1, so then all we want to do is get it equal to 0, so it looks tricky if you don't bring the 2x over. Now it's equal to 0. Now it looks more recognizable. So you need two numbers that multiply to the last at the middle. So we're going to have x and x. Two numbers multiplied to 3 has to be 3 and 1. Because it's a negative, that means they're both opposite signs. We want them to add to the negative 2, so my larger is going to be with the negative. Then the biggest thing people forget is they just forget you have to actually solve. This is factored. In order to solve, you have to tell me what x is. So technically what you're doing is you're taking each factor and setting it equal to 0, which most people will just look at it and say, okay, I flipped the signs, which is fine. So x equals 3 and negative 1. But when we get down to something like this, it is easier if you can think about it as setting the factors equal to 0 in order to solve. So it's a quadratic. We have 2 as my largest exponent. Not as easy if you don't recognize it at first. This is one of the easier ways, in my opinion. People just don't seem to think about it. So because we don't have 3 terms, we look for the greatest common factor. We have an x in both terms, so I'm going to factor the x out. There's no number that we can factor out of both evenly, so that's going to leave 7x plus 9. Now it's fully factored, and a good hint is that you don't have any more exponents on your x's, so that tells you it's fully factored. Now it's important to set each factor equal to 0, because you can see one of the factors is 0. This one's often forgotten. People just forget that that could actually be 0. Here we would subtract 9 and divide by 7. So then x would equal 0, or negative 9/7.